This podcast is hosted on podhome.fm, the most modern podcast hosting platform. Podhome offers unlimited episodes and podcasts, and unlimited use of Podhome AI, which generates transcripts, clips, chapters, title suggestions, show notes, and much more. And all of that for just $15.99 a month or $185 per year. That's a steal. So go to podhome.fm and start your 30-day trial now. And enjoy the show with Joe.
Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios, deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas, it's the Joe Rooz Show. The show where we talk about anything and everything. Where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
All righty. Hey, folks, it is Friday, the 20th of March, 2026. I am Joe Rooz, and it is great to be with you once again, transmitting live at the Asylum, and of course doing the very best we can to bring you the best quality talk radio we could muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the Joe Rooz Show. All right, folks, hope you guys are ready for the weekend. I certainly am. I feel like it's been a ridiculously long week, right? Oh, man. Well, yesterday, we were supposed to have a show yesterday with Caramel Lucas, which is the reschedule from Friday's show. But unfortunately, we weren't able to get connected. She had another commitment she had to take care of. So we'll be looking to get reconnected with Caramel on next Thursday evening. So we'll be opening up that for a special show just for her. So hope you guys were able to catch that. And also, again, Wednesday night, we had that little problem there. Our guest was a no-show. And but which is okay, it's tough when it's a live show, and you're sitting there waiting for your guest and it doesn't show up. But that's fine because we were able to go to the bullpen and we called in Mr. W. Wayne Rankin from the People's Republic of Washington State, good friend of ours, great friend to the show, and he jumped on here and we had a really great conversation talking about DIY stuff and just talking about dirt, DIY, and deep state woes. So it was a really, really good conversation. We had a good time, and it was nice to touch base with him too. We haven't had Wayne on the show for a bit, and so we had a lot of things to talk about. So I hope you get able to check that out. If not, it's all available to you. Just head over to rumble.com/Joe Rooz, and you can find it right there. And check it out. Check it out. We would love for you to do that. All right. Let's see. We got a good show for you tonight. I'm really looking forward to bringing our guest in here because tonight we're going to be talking about leadership, but not the kind that you hear about in a boardroom, not the kind that you hear about in a corporate seminar. We're talking about leadership when it actually matters. When things kind of go sideways, and I'm sure we all understand what that means. When pressure hits, when people are looking for you to step up. My guest tonight is going to be Fire Captain Mark Andrew. He's led in situations where mistakes really aren't an option. And we're going to break down why most leaders lose their teams and what real leadership looks like. And we're going to get into that here momentarily. But before we do, as usual, let's take care of all of the housekeeping stuff. All right. So if you would, folks, please head over to our website, joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. And open up that web form that's up in the little pancake on the right side of the screen. Just open that little thing up. Open up the web form, the contact form, send us over a message. Let us know whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, any questions, comments, cares, or concerns that you might have. Maybe you have a complaint. I mean, you better not have a complaint, but if you do, you can send it to us through the web form. If you don't want to use the web form, you could always email me directly at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. And, you might also have a guest suggestion or a topic you'd like us to discuss. You can send that over to us. We would love to hear from you guys and get your input. You could also use the comment section down below on Rumble and on YouTube. Why you're still on YouTube, I don't know, but you can leave a message there for us. We'll be sure to get it. And so there are plenty of ways for you guys to reach us. And so we're excited to hear from you. We want to hear more about what you want to hear, what you want to talk about. All right, so let us know. Also, please don't forget that this is a live show, weeknights, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we have our every other Saturday cryptocurrency show with our resident crypto psychic, Marissa Lee, which we're actually going to be doing one coming up, I think, next week or the week after. So we're a little bit off schedule. Things have been a little tight on both of our schedules for it, but we'll be getting that out to you shortly. So that's every Saturday afternoon at noon Central Time, every other Saturday, noon Central Time. Then, of course, we have our Sunday show, our Sunday Bible study show, every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time. So plenty of things to check out for us, from us, and we look forward to having you take part in all of these shows that we're doing. And also, very, very important, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends, your family, and your followers. That way you'll help us to spread the news about this show, mess with people's algorithms, get us in their feeds, and help us grow the channel. We would love to be able to do that at a quicker pace than we are, but we're doing good, so we're happy. All right. Now, also, tonight's connection is brought to you courtesy of Podmatch. So now you can, Podmatch is basically it's a dating app for podcasters. It's really what it is. You build up a profile, your guest builds up a profile, the algorithm puts it all together, and then you could match or pass, and you get some great guests this way. And it's great. Most of our guests have been coming through Podmatch. I think we've done over 90 interviews with guests from Podmatch. So very, very happy with it. So what's the big deal about Podmatch? It's, most podcast guests and hosts spend hours researching their connections, coordinating interviews, working on administrative tasks while really only spending, believe it or not, about 10% of their time on what really matters, and that's getting you, the audience, impactful podcast episodes. Podmatch enables guests and hosts to reclaim their time through automations and streamlined processes so that they can focus on what really matters, and that's creating content that serves the listeners. So check them out at podmatch.com. Podmatch.com. And if you want to check out our profile, go to podmatch.com/member/Joe. That's podmatch.com/member/Joe. And we would love to have you sign up. You sign up through there. You never know. You might end up being a guest on the show here with us, and we would love to have you. So check it out. podmatch.com/member/Joe. All right. Well, tonight's guest is Fire Captain Mark Andrew, author of Leading Through the Heat. He's spent years leading men in one of the most high-pressure environments there is, burning buildings, split-second decisions, and there was no room for ego or mistakes. Now he's taking those lessons and he's applying them to leadership in everyday life, business management, and dealing with people when things get tough. Mark, welcome to the show, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is great. Again, thank you. And we spoke before the show, but thank you for your service, and really do appreciate it. People don't understand sometimes, just how important a firefighter's job really is, how dangerous it is, and the amount of commitment and work that has to go into it. So, when we say thank you for it, we mean it from our heart. Absolutely.
And likewise to you as well. I know you're also a fellow brother in public safety.
Amen. That's correct, sir. And thank you for that. Now, we have a lot of ground to cover. We only have the hour. So before we get into the serious stuff, though, I really want to ask you this. What is the most random skill you have that almost never comes up in conversation?
Random skill. I was known on the job for being really good at addresses, streets and numbers, remembering the order of the streets, remembering the maps, to the point where it was borderline frustrating for me, because when we have to train our young guys, they're just not into maps. They're not even into memorizing. It's all phone apps and laptops. Right. And so I just have this ability to just remember streets all in an order, like a like a list, not even like a map. And I could not, for the life of me, find a way to communicate that to the next generation.
That's a good skill to have, to be honest with you. I remember when I started working on the job, we didn't have maps, and I mean we had maps, but we didn't have phone apps with
Right.
with the just, hey Google, where am I going here? Where am I going there?
You had to unfold the big thing in the fire truck and the ambulance, and
Yeah, sometimes you had to. Yeah, and so I remember when I started, when I got to my first command after academy, my first command after academy, and then all the probationary places they stick you. When I got to my first real command, one of the senior officers, the first thing they told me was, you have to know this. This boulevard runs north south. That boulevard runs east to west, and everything connects to it. You'll be fine. So what we would do is we would go out in the vehicle. We would just drive around and get lost and try to find our way back. And it's a lot of fun. We really enjoyed that.
That really makes a difference, especially as a police officer, because it allows you to learn your beat, the businesses, the neighborhoods.
Yep.
Yeah.
You learn your sector, absolutely. We didn't have a steady though, so we would rotate. We would do, sometimes you would be in one sector for like a couple of days, and it'd be another sector another couple of days. You really knew the area. Yeah. It was a borough-wide thing. So you learned exactly where you were, and you're able to respond really quick. So it was great. It was a great experience. I mean, and actually learning that way greatly improves your memory. Mm-hmm. It's a great memory skill. Go out, get lost. Like when I moved here to Eagle Pass, when I moved into the asylum here, I didn't know this neighborhood at all. I've been here 10 years, but I didn't know this neighborhood at all. And what I would do is I'd strap up my dogs and we'd go out and take a walk. We'd just wander the neighborhood. Had no idea where I was going, no way I was going to get back. Did not look at the phone once. I just learned my way around by walking around with my kids. And that's the best way to do it.
It really is. And there's like a hard psychology behind that. That's absolutely how the brain is wired. There's percentage levels when you learn adult teaching, because I have a EMS instructor license as well, to what percentage you're learning when you're reading versus reading plus doing a hands-on exercise plus hands-on plus going outside and doing it. There's different percentage levels to that, and it's all based on just how the brain is wired.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next question. What's the dumbest way you've hurt yourself?
Oh, it's always something around the station, like lifting up the mop bucket to pour it in the slop sink, cutting vegetables in the kitchen, all the time. So many of our duty injuries are kitchen cooking related, or you're helping unload the supply truck and you reach for that thing.
You feel that little tweak in the shoulder there, and next thing you know, you're laid up for a day or two.
I know.
Talk about kitchen. I told the story before on the show. I about a year ago, it'll be actually a year ago last week. I was cooking. I love to cook. I love, on a Sunday, I make a sauce. I make my homemade sauce, and I make pasta, all that stuff. So I was doing that, and I did not realize when I was transferring the pot of boiling water from the stove to the sink that my dog, my boy Charlie, was laying on the floor mat next to me. And so when I scooted over and I kicked him, he jumped, and to not dump the hot water all over him, I pulled it back like this, and it came out and landed right on top of my feet, my right foot. And I only had socks on. And so the boiling water got soaked into the sock. And when I took it off, it peeled skin, all that. I had horrible burns from it. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
My gosh.
When I went to the emergency room, I was looking at it. The nurse comes in, and she goes, "Well, it doesn't look that bad." I'm like, "Well, I can't do my foot fetish OnlyFans now. I'm done. Done. No more money from that."
Burns are terrible. Oh my God.
They're horrible. They're horrible, absolutely horrible. And it took a while to heal too. It took a real while. Mm. So Mark, as a fire captain, what does a day-to-day look like for you?
For us, it kind of depended on the station. So my city had 5 stations. We're right on Detroit's west border. We're one of the bigger departments in the state of Michigan. The city of Dearborn is a little over 100,000 in population. Before COVID, it would go up 20,000 during the day.
No.
because of all the Ford workers. You don't know what those numbers are like now. And it's 18,000 calls a year. So our weekdays are pretty steady at about 20 to 25 calls a day at my station. And so we have a setup where we have 2 ladder trucks. So the station that has a ladder truck and a regular fire engine, they will have a captain on the ladder and a lieutenant on the engine. And then the rest of the drivers and firefighters disseminated amongst the crew. My station only had a singular engine. And so I was the only officer there. So for me, I would come in the morning, I'd get the staffing report from the chief. Are we receiving any people from other stations to beef up our staffing? Are we loaning people out to other stations to cover vacation days? And then I would get those people moving in the right places. We would have a roll call meeting where we would check the daily emails. We would review any policies, review any runs the crew had the prior day, maybe do a tabletop training or an incident review of something that happened the prior day or we had the prior day, and find out what equipment we need. Is there anything that's on order? We got to go pick up supplies. Are the rigs in order? And then once we hit about 8:30, then everybody go out and start checking their rigs. Pulling the dipsticks out, checking coolants, checking medical bags, checking SCBAs, checking your gear. And those checks get done every single day. Whereas then I would go back and I'd load up computer reports and get the computers staffing set up for the day. So when the guys put the reports in, all the staffing and rig data just populates automatically for them. And then hopefully we'd get ourselves to lunch, handled a few 911 calls before then, and if we were lucky, sit down and have a meal. And then once we get to the afternoon, then in the fire service, a lot of the times we're able to start pacing ourselves a little bit. Allow the guys to go to the gym, allow guys to relax and catch up on some emails or some phone calls or watch some television. I was on a crew where people were decently fit. And so everybody wanted their time in the gym. So that was always rewarding to see. So we made sure to allow that.
Now, how did you get into firefighting? Was this something that you've always wanted to do, or was it something just by a stroke?
No, it absolutely was something I wanted to do. My dad was a firefighter, and coincidentally for the same city.
Oh, wow.
And it was the city I grew up in because they had residency rules back then. And in the 90s, though, it was so competitive. You only needed a basic EMT license, and some departments would just hire you. Some you needed EMT and a fire academy graduate. So you just go to a community college to get that. And then there would just be 800 people taking the test, and they might hire one person. And that's certainly not like that anymore. If we have 2 retirements in a year, we'll put out a list and we'll get 3 applicants. And
Really?
we just hope that 2 of the 3 pass the physical agility. And so back in the day, I would have just taken a job anywhere because I got into my 7th year applying, going back to school, getting more certifications. I upgraded from basic EMT to paramedic, worked at a part-time fire department, building the resume, climbing the ladder a little bit. And then 7 years into that process, Dearborn called. And so it was my dad's department. And so, yeah, I would have gone anywhere, but I was so fortunate to go where I did because it really, really is one of the best departments around.
What do you think changed from getting thousands of applicants to just a handful?
It started changing when we went paramedic. That's going to weed a bunch of people out because paramedic license is not an easy thing to get. The national pass rate of the national board exam is 50%, at least first time out. And the class is about 1.5 to 2 years. So to get it, you have to have a basic EMT license. So you got to take the basic EMT class, do all the basic EMT internship clinical hours, then take the state board exam. So you're in for about a year for that. And if you get a license, then you're allowed to take a paramedic class. You can't just have passed the class. You got to be licensed. And so then you take the 2-year paramedic class and do all the, because it's maybe a year to 1.5 years. And then you got clinical hours and internships and hospital time and ride-alongs. And then you got to take the board exam. So you're in for about 3 years. And the entry level to that job isn't to jump right into an urban fire department. The entry level to that job is to work at a private ambulance or a medical transport company or work in an ER, and to start working as a paramedic and learning the skills, climbing that ladder, building yourself up. The problem is back in the day, paramedics are, making 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour and going to a community college longer than it takes to get an associate's degree in nursing. So
wow.
because the community college I taught at was 72 credit hours for medic and 68 credit hours for the nursing degree. But nurses, you get out of school back then, it would be no problem to make 30, 40 bucks an hour. And you're willing to work nights or weekends now. It's even higher than that, just because of a nursing shortage, and hospitals just have more resources. So we weeded a lot of people out when we went paramedic, and then the National Registry for Paramedicine, who does the testing, increased the standard. So instead of like a 1.5-year paramedic class, they all increased to about 2-year classes. So now you're in for like 3.5 years, and it just got more and more cumbersome and more expensive. So a lot of just the hands-on learners that we would get that would just go to a trade school for a little bit, they just chose police or nursing and just left us in the dust. Now we're dealing with a little bit of a turnaround with that. Some of the colleges and trade schools are trying to work around that, but we just have so many less 20-year-olds that want to go into the labor sector.
Well, yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I work in my job here right now is I work in a nursing facility, and I know how much training is required for nursing, and it's not easy. When I was living back in New York, right before I started working for the city, I went through an EMT training course, and it wasn't required or anything like that. It was just something I wanted to try. I wanted to do. And I remember that even as an EMT basic, now they call it EMT basic. Back then they called it EMTDs because you had your defibrillator. So just going through that, I think it was like 8 months of classes, and it was on a part-time basis. It wasn't like in college or anything like that. You were certified by a private organization. Then you had to do your clinicals. You had to do all that stuff also. And I remember that vividly. I mean, it was fascinating. I loved doing it, but yeah, it's a lot of work. And I can only imagine what it must be like to go through paramedic school.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same, just way, way more in depth and a lot longer, and because you're learning more skills. And what we tell people when we would advocate to the public for our millages or our budgets, and I always enjoyed being able to go to those neighborhood association meetings and meet the public and advocate for us. The line we use is, we bring the emergency room to the patient. Because in a cardiac event, we follow the exact same American Heart Association standard in your living room as a doctor will do in the emergency room, with the exception of doing central lines and chest tubes. But the drug dosages and algorithms for all of that are all the same.
Yeah, paramedics can administer drugs. Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. So let's talk about leadership for a second. So when did leadership become more important than just doing the job?
Early in my career, probably my second year on, I remember talking to my peers that I hired on with and noticing that we all were frustrated by the same issues with leadership. And we were all impressed with the good leaders that we had in the same manner. We all had the same experiences and thoughts. And so we just started talking over the years as we're coming up with the seniority ranks. If we ever get a chance to be officers, here's the way I would like to do it. And we just had those conversations. Hey, I was on this call and it didn't go well. What would be a better way to handle this? So we just had these peer-to-peer conversations for the longest time. So I had learned early on that lieutenant was the gig. That just looked like a really fun job. So that was my career goal. If I didn't make captain, I wouldn't have cared. Because lieutenant, you're guaranteed to be on an engine. And you're that first step supervisor, but you're still kind of tied to the men a little bit. But it worked out that I was a captain at a station with an engine. So I got to be in an engine company. So it really worked out.
Perfect. Right. It's a perfect setup for you. So let me see. What does leadership look like when lives are on the line?
For me, it always looked like how we planned it. So for me, the leadership came before the emergency came in. I wanted to be on the crew that trained, that had drills, that practiced with its gear, practiced with the ladders, practiced with the hose. And not only that, did the tabletop training. Hey, the other crew had this fire, or we had this fire. Let's look at some bystander video of it and break down the reading of the smoke. And why did we decide to do this? And then breaking down for the newer people on the job. Hey, if we get this again and these rigs are arriving in this order, I'm going to need you to do this first. Be ready to do this. And then I can give you another order after that. And so with the training and groundwork and foundation built, when you get to an emergency scene, it's not the blah, 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 blah. It's, all right, guys, go. And then I might tweak a little bit here and there, but for me, the leadership came before the fire. So I could then just focus on my size up of the scene and just say, all right, I'll meet you at the front door. And then my partner will know exactly what tools to grab and exactly what hose size we're going to need, because it's something we practiced beforehand.
Yeah, practicing and drills are incredibly important. Incredibly important. When I was working in law enforcement, we would do drills constantly, all kinds of scenarios. It is incredibly. You have to plan, you have to prepare, you have to be ready all the time. And so drills are important. Of course, it improves your response time, and it improves your and it also builds a rapport between you and your people too.
Yes.
Because you're there with them doing it. You're not just standing off by the side directing traffic. Basically, you're actually in the trench with them doing the drill, and you build up that rapport. You build up that trust. You build up that knowledge that, all right, someone has my back. I think it's incredibly important.
Yes. Like you said, participating in the training is huge, because not that I have to micromanage all the training. And if it's a smaller topic, I loved delegating it to the senior firefighters, because now they have a chance to run a session without me looking over their shoulder. But for the most part, if I'm participating in the training, it lets everybody on the team know that the training is even important to me, and these skills are important to me. So if it's important to me, it's going to be important to them.
Exactly. So what do you think separates the guy that people trust from the guy that they don't?
I'm going to actually quote a guest you had on a prior show. I have been listening. I am a fan.
Appreciate that.
Wrote it in my notes here. Ruben Camarillo.
Oh yeah.
And he talked about, in the military, one of the worst things you could do for trust is letting your crew take the blame for stuff. And so that was one of the bigger things for me. The crews who trusted their officers were the officers that, when the chief was mad, they would go in, shut the door, and take it, and then come back out. And if it's warranted, they'll chew some butts, to quote Top Gun. And if it's just noise, they'll just take it and then just do some training on their crew and go about their day. The crews who didn't trust their officer was the officer, when the chief calls, would go, nobody told me about this. I had no idea this thing was going on. Talk to those guys. And then they're left holding the bag. Probably didn't even make an egregious mistake, just simply made a decision in hindsight that could have been made better. And instead of training them up, they're getting chewed out by some 25-year chief. And then that's where they're losing the trust in their leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's like they say, it rolls downhill, everything comes downhill.
Right. And a good leader is got that shield to prevent that from to prevent the little stuff. Now, if somebody's truly made a mistake, obviously we're going to write some stuff down, and we're going to train, we're going to get better. But I actually learned that firsthand. Do you mind if I tell this anecdote?
No, go right ahead.
It wasn't a thing where I figured it out later and had to process. I absolutely, in the moment, just said, I cannot wait to be an officer right now, because I want to do this differently. So we were assigned a task, some administrative tasks, setting some computer schedules, and it was before Google Docs and clouds. And a bunch of people had access to it, and it got messed up. And two guys too many people had the day off for vacations and leave days. And so we had to deny people time. And then I searched through the computer records and the logins and who was where. And then we figured out the problem, how it's getting saved and shared. And so I'm all happy that, hey, we figured out the answer and we now can fix it. The chief wasn't as optimistic as I was. He was still very upset. So he calls the station and my lieutenant answers the phone. And all I hear is, and he goes, yeah, just a minute. And he hands the phone to me. Yes. Yo, sorry, sir. Oh, won't happen again, sir. And I covered up the phone. I go, Tommy, what the hell are you doing? He goes, well, it's your mistake. It's a chain of command. It goes up and down. Sir. Yes, sir. Won't happen again, sir. You're supposed to be taking this call. And he just didn't get it. He goes, well, I don't understand. It was your mess up. And right there, I said, I cannot wait to be an officer. Because when that chief calls and wants to chew some butts, he's chewing mine. And I'm going to prevent my crew from having to hear any of this. It's my fault. I was delegated this, and I'm going to take it. And if I got to train with the crew, I'll train with the crew later. It's not a big deal. And little bits will roll downhill, but I'm taking the brunt of that. Because what's he going to do? Yell at me for 30 seconds, 45 seconds? Who cares? Right. And I couldn't figure out why this guy cared so much.
Maybe he had a history. I don't know. He didn't want to hear it anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But but you're absolutely right. That's a good leader stands up for his people, defends his people, protects his people. Mm-hmm. I used to tell when I got my chevrons, I used to tell my crew that, look, I will fight tooth and nail for you. Mm-hmm. Whether you're right or wrong, I will fight tooth and nail for you, and then I'll tell you about it afterwards. Mm-hmm. That's the way I was trained, and that's the way that's the same model that I adopted. And you know what? It built. Most of my people would say that I was firm but fair.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you wanted. Mm-hmm. They needed to understand that there is authority there. You have responsibilities and authority you have to exercise. But you don't have to be a jerk about it. Of course. To use a less obnoxious term.
and I mentioned this in the book. I've ran across people in other industries and even in firefighting who were in a leadership position and would actually tell us, hey, I'm not taking the hit for you. I've never been in the office. I go, wow, 25 years. Never been in the office. Never made a mistake. Never a judgment call that had to be questioned. Never stood up for somebody else. Just never been in the office. Wow. Because I've been in the office a bunch of times. Sometimes I'm sticking up for the other guy. Sometimes, I had 10 split-second decisions to make on this call, and 2 of them they didn't like. All right, let's go in and talk about it, and I'll train and I'll get better. But, man, 25 years, and you never once got called in. You've been hiding.
Yeah, exactly right. There was one time in my career that I actually took a disciplinary action to protect one of my guys. Mm-hmm. Because I knew that if he would have gotten the disciplinary action, it would have been infinitely worse.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I took the hit for him, and it hurt. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit there and say that, having to have my boss tell me how disappointed he was in my performance in this and all that, even though it wasn't me, but I did it to protect my guy. And, I let him know. I told him. I walked out of there and I was like,
learn too. Right.
I was like, dude, you owe me. You have no idea what you just did. And we corrected it. We went, I didn't do a whole big training, and set us something. It was between me and him.
There you go.
And we worked it out together. And you know what? He turned out to be fantastic at his job. And he turned himself around from that. And that was
taught the right way.
Exactly right. So now, have you ever seen leadership fail in a critical moment?
Yes. I've seen it fail a couple of times. There would be the micromanager who wants to make every decision, or the indecisive person who can't make any decision. And I found both equally frustrating. I didn't want to be the micromanager. I would rather just train ahead of time and just say go, and then or just tell them my strategy and my goals and let them figure out the tactics. So I didn't want to micromanage, but I also did want to be decisive. So
Sure.
when the decision made itself up to me, I found it very frustrating when officers would say, well, let me call the boss, or let's call another fire truck up here and get more resources, and then we'll see what they want to do. It just delays action, and it puts the whole operation at risk.
Yeah, I agree with you. So where do leaders lose respect the fastest?
For one of the ones for me was the decisiveness. Once again, anecdote in the book, had a fire, and we show up with just a single engine, and it ends up being bigger than what the 911 caller said. And so the engineer tells the new lieutenant, hey, we don't have enough tank water for this. Do you want to have the ambulance company come up? Because they got fire gear too, and we all go to the same calls. Do you want to have them attached to this run? They could come up and they could take our hose and pull it up the main road, because I think there's a hydrant at that business. We could call another engine over, and they could just give us the 500 gallons right off of their tank, and maybe 1,000 will be enough. Or we could knock it down right now, and we could drive to that hydrant and then drive back here. And the officer said, yeah, let me call the boss. And he pulls out the old flip phone, because it was a while ago. And this engineer takes the phone and just moves it away from his ear. Just, hey, don't want you to make a freaking phone call. I want you to handle it. And it was just like the phone thing with the boss. Right there, absolutely in the moment, I said, oh my God, handle it. That's the most perfect, beautiful management words I've ever heard.
Yeah.
The crew wanted him to handle something. And he said, no, I would rather wait 5 minutes and let somebody else make the decision. And it might not be his fault. It could be the way he was taught. Maybe he's been overly unfairly disciplined over the years. Our chief was a bit of a hothead. So I know he was timid because of the way he's been beaten down. But yeah, we needed decisions made, and we ended up having to just stand there and wait. And that was the type of officer I knew I was never going to be.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that modern leadership training makes people worse leaders?
I don't think so. I just think sometimes it's applied wrong. I do like a lot of modern management theory, because we could talk about the auto industry, you could talk about the tech sector, and the fire service is certainly not going to be like Google. We're not going to have unlimited PTO time and pinball machines in the office and work from home, this and that. But we do absolutely want to be all those buzzwords: caring, empathetic, building our team up, recognizing the individual, and making sure that they're a participating member. Back in the day, we talked about the hiring. We would have 800 people, and we would hire one guy. It took you forever to get a job. And by the time you got a job, you were just so happy to have a job, you were never leaving. It's not like that now. We've got every department has got open contracts and open pension systems. So we got lateral pay. People can make more working as a nurse if they want to leave. So if I don't empower these people and provide them the career that provides them with the dignity they want, they'll just leave and go somewhere else. This isn't like the 70s where I could just browbeat them because there's nowhere else they're going to go. They got plenty of options. They're going to pay what we pay. And so if I'm not providing them what they need, and it just goes in, once again, to touch on management training, goes right back to Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. You hire the young guy. Yeah, he's young. He's got the baby at home. He's got the new wife. He just bought that first house. He's starting a new life. And if he loses his job, yeah, that's a big deal. He needs the paycheck because he needs the roof over his head, and that's safety and security. But man, that dude gets 10 years on the job, 15 years on the job. He now wants to feel empowered at work. He wants to feel like he's participating at work. He wants to feel like
Yeah.
he's growing at work. And that safety and security means a lot less. We're now getting people like that from day one, where he's already got a family. He's already got kids. We hired him from another department because we got lateral pay. And so if I don't provide him what he needs, he's just going to go somewhere else. So I do think modern management can be beneficial.
Now, I think also respect, right? I think earning respect is important. Earning respect is hard. I'll say that. I have a little anecdote myself. Back in I don't remember how long ago it was, but I was working with the city, and we had an inspector. Now, in the where I was, the chain of command was you had the chief, you had deputy chief, then you had inspector, deputy inspector, and then down the line, captain, lieutenant, sergeant, corporals, and down the line. So this inspector was going on a morale tour around all the different commands. And one of the things that the agency that I worked for did is they would routinely bring people in from the outside for those higher level positions. So very rare did you see someone from the lower ranks work their way up into those positions. So there was a lot of discontent around the city at the time, and my particular agency. And I'm trying to word it properly. So this inspector goes around to do this morale tour, and he went to one particular command, and they were just letting him have it. I mean, they were just not disrespectfully. They were venting. They were letting their grievances out. They were talking about the things that were troubling them and the stuff that was going on that needed to be addressed. And somebody made a comment that that he wouldn't understand what their concerns and their issues are because he's never worn the uniform. And his answer was, I never did, and you wouldn't catch me dead wearing the uniform. You have to respect me because of my title. And I think that capped him right there. I think he lost all respect from everyone at that moment. Mm-hmm. You can't demand respect. You have to earn it.
Absolutely.
And I don't think, and so I guess my question is, how do you earn respect from someone who doesn't automatically even give respect?
Yeah, I don't know if you can. What we see, I don't know how much it's like this in a larger city municipal police department, but in the fire service, in suburban departments, it's even like this in Detroit. Detroit is one of the major departments in the city, in the country, and I've heard very similar stories. In the fire service, you're going to be a firefighter for 10, 15 years before you start getting close enough in the seniority of the testing to probably become that first line officer or lieutenant. And so you've got 15 years of work behind you. So the thing we see in the fire service is the people that cared enough about the job and did good work for 15 years. So when they get promoted, their reputation precedes them. They are already respected as being somebody who's a talented paramedic, knows their EMS protocols. They kept their ambulance stocked well. They didn't forget to restock things and just let the other crew deal with it. Right. They left the fire truck in good order. They knew their skills. They could physically handle the job of firefighting on the times we would get a fire. So you built up that reputation. And then we had other people who just coasted along until they had enough seniority points or had taken the written test enough to now get promoted to lieutenant. And we called that, you can't go from the recliner to being an officer. And so that's what we see in the fire service more, is the person who spent 15 years being the lazy guy, not participating in training, not wanting to do this, complaining about that, not wearing a uniform, whatever it might be. And then on day one, all right, bag gets dropped, give me 20, you button up that uniform, I want that ironed, I want the tie on. I mean, you can't turn that switch on day one.
Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely right. So I'm watching the clock here, so I didn't realize we went this long already. I want to talk about your book. We're talking about all this
Sure,
other great
let's do
stuff,
it.
but we didn't really get into the book yet. So
We actually
leading
kind
to
of have. This is so much of what it's about.
oh well, okay. Well, there's my question. I was going to ask you to tell us really what is leading through the heat about.
It's about just managing people, leading people, inspiring them, and what are techniques to actually do that. And so I wrote it very anecdote based. Here's this scene. Here's what went well. Here's what didn't go well. And here's how you could apply that to management training. And then what's a way we could do this better? And then I go to the next chapter. All right. Say it's being decisive or being good at the job or being present or being a micromanager. And then I would just lay out an anecdote at the beginning of the chapter and then break down in terms of management theory. Why did this resonate with the crew? And why did this frustrate the crew? And what are ways we can be better? Because that was the goal for me, was to really just make all workplaces, whether you're in an office or in a factory or in a fire department, make workplaces better after you're done working there, for better for the people coming after you.
Yeah. Now, you agree, you sent me a copy of the book today on a PDF, and I appreciate that. It was really good. I started reading through it. Like I said, I wasn't going to get through the whole thing today, but I definitely want to continue on through it. Now, you open up the book with stories about bad leadership. Why start there instead of the good examples?
Is in my memory of coming up the ranks, those were the things that inspired me to want to learn leadership more than anything else. While I was inspired by the good leaders and inspired by the good lieutenants and captains I had, and I had some really good senior firefighters as well, are just very talented, and we all knew they were going to make great officers when they had a chance to promote up. But it was the what not to do's that I realized I was making a mental checklist of. So when I got close to lieutenant, I started laying out strategies for how I would like to train or manage a crew. And I realized, oh, wow, I've got this whole inventory of things I'm not going to do.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, because I did something similar to that in my career. When I was going through the process of promotion, I thought back over a lot of the supervisors and patrol supervisors that I've had up to that point, and I had a mental checklist of, all right, I will not be that. I will not do that. I will never do that. I had one particular supervisor who every day at roll call would walk in with a stack of write-ups, like pre-filled out, everybody's name on it. Everybody had one, and that was their motivational speech for the day. There's one here for you. Let's see how fast you get it. How that is not leadership.
Yes.
That is absolutely not leadership, and that's something that I said to myself, well, if my time ever comes, I will not be that person. I mean, we used to fantasize about pushing this person down a flight of steps and taking a position, taking a picture of them with an empty bourbon bottle laying on the floor, all cracked open, just taking their picture and posting it all over the place, submitting it as evidence that, we never did. Just to be clear, okay, it never happened.
Of course.
But it was fun to think about. So I never wanted to be that. Was there a moment early on where you said, I will never be that guy? A specific moment?
Yeah, I had an a specific moment for me was like the person at the fire didn't make the phone call. That was one. And then I had another one where an officer, I think just due to age or injury, was struggling with the job, and he ended up just that rotten luck. He was first due at a fire and was kind of hoping to always be the second or third due guy. And he got there and he just waited for the second engine to show up so they could go into the fire. And I remember him just telling his partner, "Hey, I go in with them," and I just never wanted to be the guy who would send somebody into a job he was unwilling to do himself.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I was like that too, and that's the way I was trained. The good supervision that I followed, the good leadership that I followed, and I tried to pattern my style of leadership off of. They were the guys that jumped right in the middle of everything with everybody. They didn't stand off to the side, and they were there through everything. And that's the type of leadership that I think resonates with people, with your staff, with your personnel, with the team that you're working with, however you want to phrase it these days. Being willing to get your hands dirty.
And I follow that up.
Yes.
Yes. On the book, it was a discussion I had with the publisher. Like, so here's my cover. They had said, we have a lot of rights-free photographs that we could just put on the book and it won't cost you any money. And I said, absolutely not. I want pictures of the real doing a job. So this is actually a fire we had just a couple of years ago. And I just remembered this photo. It was me ahead of my guy getting a hole in a roof, and then he's going to come in and finish it up with the chainsaw. But I was ahead of him, sounding out the roof, making sure it's safe, checking the stability, looking at the fire behavior, and then we were able to let that heat vent out. But I desperately needed the crew to know that I'm going to go ahead of him. You focus on your job. I'll be checking for safety. I'm sounding out the roof. I'm checking the stability, so he could focus on his job, knowing that I'm watching all angles. And not only that, I'm putting myself right in the thick of it with him. He's never going to be by himself.
Yeah, leading by example. I think leading by example is absolutely critical and effective to be an effective leader. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, there was a story, and I think we kind of touched on this already, but there was a story in the book where a particular leader passed blame down instead of taking it. Now, when something like that happens, it tends to do a lot of damage to the team. And so when something like that happens, especially in a fire company, how much damage does that bring about?
To us, it's a ton of damage. I don't know what it's like in a military company. I am assuming it's kind of the same in a police department. I wonder if it's a little less in a large police department. But in the fire station, it's way different because there's 8 to 10 of us on a team in a fire station for 24 hours, and we're going to work together for at least a year, with maybe the junior guy transferring. The guy at the bottom will transfer once a year so they can kind of move around the city. And then if somebody in the middle happens to get promoted, then they'll move up. But for the most part, it's the same 8 to 10 men and women on the same crew for a year to 2 years. And it's such an intimate relationship that if you don't have their back, you can't go hide from them. You're all in the same building. Right. I get to sit down at the lunch and dinner table with these people, and they're going to know I'm the guy that called them out or didn't have their back or let them take the blame. And so I don't have an office to go hide in. If an administrative officer does that, they could probably just explain it away as pressure from above, and they could just go to their office because they're not going to be seen by anybody anyway. I'm right there in the middle. So I can't do that to them and then sit down at lunch and say, hey, pass the salt. It's not going to work.
Absolutely. So what do you think the cost of weak leadership is?
The cost. I would probably say it's going to be an investment of your time. If you are taking this job because you think it's easy, because you could, in the real world, I could have delegated so much of my job to the junior people because they all wanted to learn the administrative side of the job. They wanted to learn how things worked on my end. They also wanted to learn their own leadership skills. So if I wanted, I could delegate everything, and they were eager workers to take it. And I could just come in and take a nap all day. But if you're going to be a leader like that, you're taking the job for the wrong reasons. You've got to want to make a difference. You've got to want to lead a crew that can perform at a high level when the chips are down. And so the cost is really going to be your time, because now I've got to stay up on all the calls that are coming in, not just the calls that I go on. So I would have to follow up the ambulance crew. Hey, I noticed you guys had a pediatric patient in the other district. How did that call end up? Tell me what happened. And so every single day I'm following up with the junior guys to what their job is. Hey, we did that inventory. What was the result of that? Oh, we're missing this one thing. Great. Do you need me to put a call in to the EMS supply chief? No, we got it, but thank you. And so if you're getting out of that office and walking around the building and participating with people, it's going to be legitimate work, and you're going to lose a lot of your day, but it's important work and needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, so I think a lot of folks that are in leadership positions are afraid about looking soft, right? What does actually caring about your team look like without becoming soft?
Oh, I love this question because it's something that meant a lot to me. Caring and empathy are not weakness. Half the time,
agreed.
If I care about something or care about a person, it's not that I'm letting them off the hook. Every once in a while it is. Every once in a while somebody makes a mistake. And I found out most of the time with poor performance, it's rarely an issue of that employee's talent for the job. It's almost always a distraction. If I could find out what the distraction is and provide them resources to refocus, whether I'm going to give them a break off the ambulance the next day, I'm going to reassign some duties, I'm going to talk to the boss and see if we can get him some FMLA time for a sick family member, whatever it might be, letting him know he's got that advocate, he can work past those mistakes. A lot of the times, though, caring could be the not only not forgiving something, it could be holding people accountable. So if I care about somebody, I care enough to have that tough conversation. So if a mistake happens, pulling a person aside, closing the door in confidence, not gossiping about it later, and just looking a man in the eye and just saying, you know what? You haven't been yourself lately. Tell me what's going on. And I found almost all the time they say, you know what, you're right. I got this thing at home and my mind's over here. I'm really sorry. I don't want to let the team down. And then they take ownership in it because they know I'm not here to bring the hammer down. I'm here to build them up. And so having that caring is sometimes caring enough to have the tough conversation. Absolutely.
Absolutely right. I had a similar conversation not too long ago at my current job. You know, I had to do that, and it was uncomfortable, but necessary, and it made a difference. It made a difference, and I learned something that, you know, I'd been hypercritical on something, on one particular task that we were doing, and you know, and by just having that conversation, it opened up my eyes to that. Okay, well, you know what? There's something else going on here, and we were able to come to a resolution on it, which was what you want to do. You don't want to let things sit there and fester, especially in leadership. You let things sit and fester, and it just gets worse.
Absolutely.
It's like a cancer. It metastasizes. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's so bad that it completely shuts down everything. And it's important. That line of communication, a dialogue, all of that stuff is important. And to be an effective leader, you have to be able to sit down and have those conversations, no matter how uncomfortable they might be.
Right. Because little mistakes, if you ignore it because you want to be the guy's buddy, don't be shocked in 2 years when this turns out to be a big mistake. And all of a sudden now it's not a letter in a file, it's a suspension. Yes. Just laying it on the line for people. Most of the time, a person wants to be told straight. They don't want you to sugarcoat it. They want you to treat them like a grown up.
Yeah. You get a better, I think you get I think you get a better reaction, a better response rather, when you're just out and direct about it. I think that really works. So now, if somebody listening or watching right now feels like they're in over their head as a leader, what's the first thing they should do to fix this tomorrow?
Listen to your people. Leadership starts with listening. Know what they're doing. Pay attention to the job. Get out of your office and walk the floor a little bit. pay attention to their behavior and their mannerisms, and whether they're tired, whether they're distracted. And you'll be surprised at what you pick up on and how you can make tweaks in the assignments that can, if somebody's getting frustrated in this angle, maybe it's because he's been doing this one task for all these weeks and we haven't shared it with anybody. And maybe he wants to do a different task, and whatever it might be, getting out of that office, walking around, listening to your people is huge.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Mark, this has been great. I love this. Great stuff. And
likewise,
actually,
this is fun.
I pulled out a lot of stuff from you tonight for myself, my own personal use. So, but before we wrap this whole thing up, who is someone that you respect right now, and what are they doing that inspires you?
I gotta go to another motivational speaker and author. I like what Jocko Willink and Leif Babin have created with their extreme ownership brand. It has really brought leadership talk out of the Fortune 500 C-suites, which used to be cornering the market on any sort of management training. And they've really brought it down to the common man. Just using military examples sometimes, but rarely talking about legitimate SEAL operations. They're just talking about people being human. And I like the way that they've been able to build a brand based on just being a good listener, a caring and empathetic boss, and somebody that's willing to hold people to a standard.
Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Great answer, man. I like that. I'm going to have to check into more about them. I know of them, but I don't really know a lot of the work that they've done. So I'm going to take a look into that myself. All right, Mark. So where can people go to find out more about you and about your work?
I'm on Instagram, Mark DBN Fire, and I post some leadership thoughts on X. I have a podcast called The Conversation, so it's at The Conversat, just because it ran out of letters. And they can get my book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Outstanding. Can you do me a favor when you have a chance? Just can you email me those the links to your social media stuff so I can put them into the show notes for later on?
Consider it done.
All right. So the only link I have for you is the Amazon link, and that's what I have in the show notes right now.
And I will get you the Barnes.
All right. Outstanding. All right, Mark, Andrew, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. This is a great conversation, really enlightening, a lot of really good information here. I'm looking forward to finishing the book. I might actually finish it this weekend. So great stuff, man. I really do appreciate you, and thank you again for your service. God bless you. And if you want to hang out backstage for a couple of minutes, I'll catch up with you and as soon as I wrap up the rest of the show.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you backstage. All right, folks. Mark, Andrew. Great stuff, man. I mean, legitimately great stuff, and very, very important, very timely stuff. Check it out. Check out the book. Check out his social media accounts. Really important. Good leadership is incredibly important, and we're going to touch on that here momentarily. But first, let's do some last-minute stuff, folks. It's tax season, and you know that I feel and I believe firmly that taxation is theft. And especially things like property taxes are absolutely immoral. So, but the folks over at Diamond Dynasty Tax Group Legacy here in Eagle Pass are not asking me to talk about my beliefs on taxation. They would like for you to call them, give them an opportunity to help you file your taxes. I used them last year when I purchased the asylum. And we did the renovations here, and we built the studio. I gave them a folder about that big, full of invoices, receipts, and so on. And they took all of that stuff. They minimized the stress in dealing with all this stuff. They maximized my return on it, and I appreciated the work that they did. So when they asked me if I would speak on their behalf, I absolutely said yes. So Diamond Dynasty Tax Group Legacy, 830-867-7106. It's 830-867-7106. They're a local business right here in Eagle Pass, Texas, but you don't have to be in Eagle Pass to use them. You can use them wherever. All right, so check them out, 830-867-7106. It's 830-867-7106. All right, shout-outs, of course, to our producing team, executive producers, Wayne Rankin, Rosanna Rankin, Carolina Jimenez, Marissa Lee, and, of course, the inestimable Anonymous Angela. Thank you guys for all the work that you put into the show. I really do appreciate it. And folks, these guys, they put in their time, their talent, their treasure to help do this show and put these things together for us. And honestly, A lot of the stuff that goes on here, I wouldn't be able to get done if it wasn't for their help. So I really do appreciate it. Now, if you would like to become part of our team here, it's very easy to do. Just head over to our website, joerooz.com/support. That's joerooz.com/support. And you can find out about all the different ways that you can help support the show. That's joerooz.com/support. And if you have the means to do it, if you're able to do it, if you're willing to do it, take a look at the different ways you can help us out and click that button and help us get this thing going. All right. Now, again, this was a great conversation tonight with Mark. It was real leadership stuff. There's no fluff in this, no rhetoric, no theory, just what actually works when it counts. If there's one thing to take away from this, it's respect isn't given because of a title. It's earned through how you show up, especially when things get tough. If you got any value out of this, share it with someone. Share it with somebody who's in a leadership position. Maybe they're struggling with it. Maybe they have questions. Share it with them. All right? And make sure you follow the show. Make sure you follow Mark's show. And go check out Leading Through the Heat. All right, folks. I think that should just about do it for me for tonight. I really do appreciate you guys being here with us this week. No show tomorrow. We'll be back Sunday with our Sunday Bible study. Don't forget to head over to our website, joerooz.com, contact section. Leave us a message. Let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you guys. All right. Well, with that said, it's Friday night. Enjoy it. Saturday's tomorrow. Thank God. And let's do this. Let's make Texas independent again. Go podcasting. Keep a steady stride. And more importantly, keep talking. Good night, folks.